Hey guys, it's Gabriel here for Renaissance Poop, and today we're doing The Last Jedi full spoiler review. So no holds barred. I'm talking anything and everything. If you have not seen this movie, get the hell out of here. Go watch it. Come back when you're done. We can talk about it together. So this is your spoiler warning. Yeah, like 5 seconds. Not even. Get out of here. Go. Go. Okay. Anyway, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Let's talk about it. The movie itself is very unpredictable. It's quite intense. It is visually the best Star Wars movie in my opinion. Thematically, it uses a lot of old themes from Star Wars, but it turns them on their head and expands on the lore, the mythology of Jedi, the Force. It expands on certain characters, especially in their older age. I love it. I'm absolutely in love with this movie. There's a lot of fans who absolutely hate it, and they're bashing directors, they're bashing cast, crew, and other fans, not calling them true Star Wars fans because of their reactions to this movie. And you know what? Cool, you do you. But that's a topic I'm going to cover in a whole other video, and I'm going to put my own thoughts on into that. It's not going to mean much to anybody. I don't care. It's something I feel I have to say about it. But we'll get to that another time. Let's go on with why I thought this movie was amazing. In my opinion, Star Wars: The Last Jedi is by far my favorite Star Wars movie. Why? The first one, and this is a gripe that a lot of Star Wars fans have with the movie, is it's too political. No, man, no. Star Wars Episode 1 to 3 was political as hell. Politics played a huge hand in it. The original trilogy, 4, 5, 6, there's politics in there too. They're more simplified politics at the time that the movies were shot. Speaking of the original trilogy, those movies were a reflection of the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War at the time. The rebels were the Viet Cong, the Empire was the United States Army, and the whole criticism of the war and the backlash by American citizens, seeing what was happening on the ground, is reflected in that movie. The Last Jedi as a movie is, it's a social commentary. It reflects our current world state. I'm not American, I'm Canadian. Not born here either, I was born in Poland. But I'm a Canadian citizen, I live here, and watching the US and everything else going on in the world right now as a Canadian, we're just like, what the hell is wrong with you guys? Yeah, the movie is a reflection of our modern political state around the world. All things that we're familiar with or that we experience in the world in the last few years have been turned on their head with the election of Donald Trump and rampant racism that's reemerged in the US. People are fighting for their rights as human beings. So there's the LGBTQ movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, the 99% movement, 1% movement, whatever that was called. The Arab Spring that was going on a few years ago. All those things have been coming out in the last few years, and this movie is a social commentary on all things we've experienced in our real world. And a lot of people don't like that. The reason being is Star Wars is escapism for a lot of people, and that's okay. You can use it to get away from your dreary life. That's fine. I do it too. I read fantasy books, I read Star Wars books, but at the end of the day, these are things we can't escape. And the best metaphor to how to deal with certain situations, how to act as a human being, a moral human being, at least in my opinion, is through movies. They provide the best metaphor of how to react to certain situations and how to live your best life. So the example here is that in the last century, the U.S. has been the leader of the free world as we know it. They've dictated wars, the economy, laws that affected other countries' actions and other things like that. The U.S. has set the political tone for the entire world for, say, maybe the last century and a half. World War II, for example, the U.S. came in late, but they had the moral high ground for they had the moral high ground for the whole World War II. They were there to stop the Nazis, basically, and Japan at the time, which was allied with the Axis powers. And since that point, they've always shown themselves as having the moral high ground. They are the police force of the world. They don't deal with dictators. They don't deal with communism. They don't deal with terrorism. They will step in and take care of those things for everyone else. And that was their narrative. They won their wars. The winners make history. That's the fact. There can be two sides to every story, but at the end of the day, whoever wins makes history, and it's their own point of view. Just like Obi-Wan said in Star Wars, everything's from a certain point of view. The US hasn't always been right in those cases, or their interference in the world hasn't always been right, but that's the reality of the situation. In the last 10 to 15 years, the narrative has changed for the American. US actions have come into question under, say, the Bush administration, going into the Middle East, invading Iraq for weapons of mass destruction, where they were there for oil and to remove a dictator from before when George Bush Sr. was in power. The U.S. internal problems have also come more to light. The U.S. is always the home of the free and the brave, all that jibber jabber. Not to knock Americans, a lot of American friends, but leadership and the political state in the country, yeah, it's insane. But that's my own opinion. But the U.S. internal struggles have come to light in the last decade, half a decade, no, a decade and a half, I should say. Racism believed to have been abolished with Abraham Lincoln, the Black Civil Rights Movement, all that stuff. It's never went away. Racism has always been prevalent. It's even prevalent in Canada. It's under the surface, and it's been happening the last few years. It's been coming to the surface, and you know what? It's a real problem. I'm considered part of the problem based on my own skin tone, though that's not who I am as a human being. So there's been a lot of gun violence, police brutality, people other than white being treated as second-class citizens in the U.S., and it's coming to a head. And you know what? It's always been there, but it's just becoming more prevalent now because of social media and news and the way news is portrayed by mainstream media outlets. A lot of false information or party line information being distributed through the news. Never really been more prevalent until the Trump administration has come to the U.S. That's where people are really just unhappy with their situation. As we can see, some people love it and some people don't. That's shitty, but that's the way it is there. But the Trump government is being run by a person considered by many to be a showboating buffoon. The government that was put into power puts wealth and control of resources and other things into the already wealthy, makes the gap between rich and poor wider, and makes a lot more people dissatisfied by removing social systems, healthcare, taking away old pension, social security, things like that. We're seeing a whole lot of counter movements pop up in response to all the injustice going on in the U.S. in the last decade or so. Like I said before, there's the Black Lives Matter movement, the 99 versus 1%, the LGBTQ rights movement, women's rights, again, are being at the forefront of the political agenda because women are also being treated as second-class citizens, or even second-class human beings, for that matter. People are getting their lawful rights taken away, and the U.S. is becoming less and less of a democratic society. The Star Wars Last Jedi is a complete reflection of that chaos that you see in real life, in American real life. Movements that come out are being reflected in the Star Wars universe. The Resistance and the Rebels, those are the counter movements coming out to those in power, which reflect themselves as the Empire or the First Order in this case. Star Wars has always been a political commentary. It started with the Vietnam War, when George Lucas wrote the original trilogy. The prequels were an entire commentary on politics and corruption, and at the time when he wrote them. The case of The Last Jedi, America has pretended to be one thing to the world, the savior, the good guy, but the case is America has basically turned into the First Order. They, just like in the Star Wars universe, if you've been reading the novels and the comic books of the new canon, the Alliance has turned into the Republic. They're trying to restore democracy and freedom to the galaxy. They've demilitarized their fleets and all that. In the meantime, the remnants of the Empire have gone into the unknown regions of the galaxy, They spent the next 30 years after Return of the Jedi building up their forces. They don't directly engage in confrontation with the Republic, though the Republic is aware of the First Order at some point. First Order has been biding their time before they take open hostilities against the Republic. And just like the First Order, those people who are currently in power have bided their time in the U.S., and now they've been elected into power. And the whole, you can use the symbolism of the Force Awakens when Starkiller Base destroys Hosnian Prime and the New Republic. It effectively wipes out the New Republic government in Star Wars. And it brings chaos and dissension, and it allows for the corrupt to move in and seize control of the galaxy. That's kind of where you see the first Jedi movie kind of start off there. So the Trump administration is effectively the First Order. They've bided their time, and once they have power, now they're going crazy with it. They're no longer hiding in the unknown regions or whatever that would be in the U.S. They are in power now, and they're causing chaos in the U.S. and in the galaxy, just like the First Order is. Some of those things, just like we see, and since Trump took over, is the repeal of a lot of Obama-era policies like Obamacare, the net neutrality repeal that recently went on. People's ability for freedom of information, free choice, their basic human rights are being taken away bit by bit. The information coming out of the current government is very controlled and spun in certain images, like things that are factual are being declared as fake news, or science is being doubted, global warming is being doubted, while we watch our planet get destroyed. And man, that's exactly what's going on in The Last Jedi. That movie is a total commentary of real world problems, and the way those things are handled can inspire people in real life to rise up and to handle their own oppression, even in a first world developed country like the US. The irony of all this is that it was the people's choice. They elected the current government in the US, and they brought about their own downfall, just like the Republic in the time after the Return of the Jedi. The Republic was totally aware of the First Order. They chose to do nothing about it until the First Order built up enough military strength, built Starkiller Base, and wiped the New Republic out. And they want to bring back the rule of martial law, or the propaganda rule that we saw during the Nazi regime in real life, to the galaxies. Yeah, it reflects current things going on in the real world. As a side note, or as a continuation, the control of information, say in the States, and the way things are being spun is very similar to what you see in the Inferno Squad books on Vardos. We find that the character of Iden Versio, her mother is a propagandist for the First Order, a military propagandist. She creates all the military posters for people to enlist and join, and that's kind of the same thing that's going on in the US right now too. We had, I don't remember what the guy's name was. It was something Spencer. He was the White House correspondent until a little while back. And again, there was certain control of information. Things were getting spun in a certain way to make the government look good when people knew it was bullshit. And it's a complete reflection. It's reflected totally in Star Wars. And it's a sort of commentary on those real life issues and how to deal with them. Just like real life, the movie, everything gets turned on its head. Expectations are shattered. Nothing goes the way you think it goes. There's a struggle just like there is in real life. And a lot of fans aren't down with that, but a lot of fans are afraid of their own reality, I guess. Or I guess the ones that are griping about it are afraid of the current situation. And that's okay. They want to escape, that's cool. They don't have to like the movie. But I personally love it. And just like everything has been turned on its head in the real world and in the movie, the things we thought mattered don't matter. And the things we didn't even think about suddenly matter. And they're important, just like in this movie. The second reason why I love Star Wars The Last Jedi is the unexpected breathes new life into the movie, into the franchise, and it was something Star Wars badly needed. Star Wars is very formulaic. It uses the hero's journey by, what's his name? Joseph Campbell, I believe, was the person who wrote the Hero with a Thousand Faces. And it uses the formula of the hero's journey through episode 1 to 3, 4 to 6. And you know what? It's been getting stagnant. I'm Personally, I love the EU, the expanded universe. If you guys don't know what that is, I'll be doing more videos actually on the expanded universe and current canon as my channel grows, so stay tuned for those. But the EU was great. I loved it as a fan. The books were amazing. It wasn't very cohesive. There's a lot of jumping it around. There's a lot of retconning, taking things out. The new canon tries to fix all that, tries to make everything cohesive, which I love. And it does borrow elements of the EU, but it spins them on its head. And the unexpectedness of those elements and what predictions I had and other fans had going into the movie were totally wiped out. And that's a great thing. Star Wars needs the unexpected. It needs to mature. It needs to grow. It can't just be black and white anymore. As the fans age, the original generation from the original trilogy, I guess you could say is the baby boomer generation, and the millennials like myself, we're going to butt heads as they age. They go out of society into retirement. We try to take over. It's going to happen. They're going to butt heads. A lot of older people aren't going to like the movie, just like they don't like change. A lot of new people are going to say, hey, don't be afraid of change. Why are you resisting it? You don't understand. But hey, that's okay. That's part of life. There's going to be discourse. There's going to be disagreement. And that movie totally covers those bases. In the hero's journey, we see a certain formula happen. There's a call to adventure where the hero has a calling. There's an event or something that pushes them into their first adventure. They receive supernatural aid in the form of guardians or gatekeepers. They kind of lead the hero into their first threshold or event that changes their lives. The hero's journey has a mentor figure, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Old Ben was that in the original trilogy. The hero gets to a point where they reject the call to action. They reject the call of their own journey. So they're afraid of change. They step back, or they fail in some way. It sets them back, but it has a whole series of consequences which leads it around. There's a series of consequences and challenges which lead the story through that the hero has to face before they reach a point where they're called again to this adventure. And then this is where death happens. This is called the death and abyss part of the hero's journey. The hero has to die. Part of the hero, the character of the hero, who they were before, needs to die, and then they are reborn into a person with wider understanding of the world, how things work, and they try to atone for their failure before, and they eventually atone for that or don't atone for that. They become the wise old mentor that they had from before, so they move from here to over here, and then they meet another person and they try to pass on that knowledge, and the cycle starts again. It's one giant circle. In the original trilogy, we saw the hero's journey with Luke as a boy on Tatooine. His call to action was encountering Obi-Wan Kenobi in the deserts of Tatooine, him getting a lightsaber. He rejects the call, says he has to stay at Tatooine. Then a series of bad events happen. Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru are murdered, and he reaches that threshold of failure. And things start to spiral down. He accepts his call to adventure. He goes with the old mentor, Obi-Wan, try to get to Alderaan. They get to Alderaan, it's blown to pieces. They get onto the Death Star to rescue the princess. Obi-Wan and Vader fight, and Luke then sees Obi-Wan cut down. That is the death scene, the death portion of the hero's journey. Luke's innocence, his naivete as a farm boy and a farmer, is shattered as his mentor's only living parent figure is destroyed by Darth Vader. He then has to learn to accept that as he joins the rebels and accepts that, hey, he's alone now, but he can do things to change his situation. So we see his arc going up. He tries to atone for his mistakes. He blows up the Death Star, and then he receives the gifts of the supernatural, as you call it. He taps into the Force, and he hears old Ben saying, let go, use the Force. The Death Star gets destroyed, and it cycles back around and to the start of the next movie, where he goes on a different hero's journey, where he learns to become a Jedi. That formula has been used again in The Force Awakens. Rey has her own hero's journey throughout the entire movie. It's a good formula, but it's like Joseph Campbell's book, The Hero of a Thousand Faces, it's been told 1,000 to 100,000 times. And you know what? It's still used in The Last Jedi, but in a different way, in a way you don't really expect. There's a hero's journey. There's, I'd say, even a master's journey, a new hero's journey for Luke Skywalker. There's a villain's journey for Kylo Ren, and it's just, it's amazing. Like I said before, the reasoning is not so black and white in this movie. There's shades of gray. The people here are fallible. They're human. They give into their fears, their doubts, their frustrations. They act, some fans would call uncharacteristic of those heroes. This is all in the original trilogy, and that's okay. Pain and suffering throughout someone's life can make them react totally different. It can change their personality into someone or not. Luke Skywalker is a major criticism in this movie for a lot of fans, that he is not Luke. He's not the Luke of the original trilogy. Well, yeah, no shit. It's been 30 years. Pain, suffering, death, just like in real life, all that trauma can change the way a person thinks, feels, acts. And I've seen it in my life with people I know, people I loved, and they've changed. They're different, and that's exactly what happens to Luke Skywalker in this movie. He's changed. He's not the hopeful hero that we see in the end of Return of the Jedi. He's a broken man. He has gone through some shit in the last 30 years. It's not all explained. The major stuff is explained. Yeah, I don't know what you guys are expecting. But the complexity of these characters and the reason their decisions have led them, and their actions and the things they've gone through have led them to the point they are at, really pushes the envelope and matures Star Wars to a point it's never been before. And I love that. That's one of my favorite things about this movie. For the hero's journey, we see one with Rey and Luke in The Last Jedi. We see Luke's call to action when Rey comes to Ahch-To and hands him the lightsaber. She needs his help to go back to the Resistance, help restore some hope to the galaxy. He refuses that call. He tosses the lightsaber over his shoulder and is like, fuck it. Go away. I don't need you. He's a grumpy ass old man. And then we see Rey pester Luke until you see the pull of the Force. We see the Force call to her when she's walking up the hill. She feels and hears the Jedi text calling to her. And that is the supernatural aid that begins Luke's journey past the first threshold of the hero's journey in this movie. Then Luke reluctantly decides to train Rey, teaches her 3 different things about the Jedi and why they need to end. We see Luke go onto the Millennium Falcon, and then R2-D2 is there at one point, and he cusses Luke out. Luke has a line like, hey, it's called the Sacred Island, and watch your tone. R2, I always knew you to be the most filthy mouth motherfucker ever. I knew it. After he meets R2-D2, R2 plays the Help Me Obi-Wan Kenobi hologram from A New Hope. Luke calls it a cheap shot, and that R2 there acts as a threshold guard, and he's pushing Luke past the threshold and past the downward spiral that he's in. After Luke meets with R2, he decides to give Rey 3 different lessons on the Jedi and exactly why they need to end. Rey's first threshold, her call to action here is to bring Luke back. That was given to her by the Resistance. Her first threshold is to get Luke to become the old mentor for her own hero's journey that's running parallel to Luke's at the moment. So Luke teaches her how to use the Force. He has her to sit on a rock as the first lesson to reach out. He does this funny slapstick where she physically reaches out, and he's got like this branch with him, and he tickles her fingers like, oh, do you feel that? What is that? He's like, oh, I feel something. Oh, is that the Force? Oh my god, it's really strong with you, Luke says. And he slaps her hand away and tells her to reach out with her feelings. So in that way, he's acting as the old mentor for Rey, the same way Obi-Wan did for him. And then we see Rey get tempted by the dark side while she's meditating on the rock. A dark side cave under Ahch-To calls to her. It tells her it has answers to a question she seeks, which is the question of who her parents are and why did they leave her. Luke then witnesses Rey's raw power as she cracks the ground and makes rocks levitate around him and starts to collapse the cave behind him that just came. Luke gets scared. He's reminded of his failure at that point, and that's the failure with Kylo Ren. And we see Luke a little later on give his second lesson, or this could still be part of the first lesson. It's a little fuzzy. Go watch the movie again. But we see Luke recount the history of how Sidious came to power, which is actually something I'd like to know, how he learned Darth Sidious's name. It might be in the comics. I think I read it somewhere, but I gotta go back and read it. But anyway, he tells Rey how the Empire came to power, how the Jedi, in their hubris, let Sidious wipe them out, how the Jedi trained the greatest mass murderer of Jedi, Darth Vader. Rey counters that whole argument with, hey, Darth Vader was conflicted, you saw the conflict within him. You brought him back to the light. And like, yes, Luke says, I did bring him back. And that's when I became a legend. And he mocks himself as Luke Skywalker, the legend. The reason he's mocking himself is because of his failure with Kylo Ren. Luke makes a choice in this movie. He probes Kylo Ren's heart while he's sleeping. He's been sensing the dark side in him in the past. During his training, he looks into his future, and he sees Ben Solo turning into Kylo Ren, all the death and destruction that he will bring. And it scares him. He has a moment of weakness. He pulls out his lightsaber, and he thinks, you know what, I can stop all this. This won't be another Vader situation. I can kill him now. And it'll be over. And then in that moment of weakness, Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, wakes up and he sees his mentor, his master, standing over him with a crazed look in his eye with his green lightsaber, ready to strike him down. But he doesn't notice is the remorse on Luke's face. He knew he failed. He failed him as a master in that moment. And that's when all hell breaks loose. Kylo pulls out his blue lightsaber. The hilt is also very familiar. It's very similar to his crossguard lightsaber. He blocks Luke. He brings down the hut that they're staying in on top of his head. And then while Luke is unconscious, he takes a bunch of other students with him, slaughters the rest that won't join him, and burns Luke's Jedi temple to the ground. So Luke created Kylo Ren. That is a major plot point here. And Kylo Ren wasn't bad before. Yes, he was conflicted. And then Rey says something to Luke that Kylo did not make his choice yet later in the movie. And Luke realizes that he never gave Ben a chance. He gave into his fear. He gave into the dark side, in a sense, the dark side in his own soul. And before any of that happens, Luke tells a version of his failure with Kylo Ren to Rey, that he's been sensing the dark side in his apprentice, and he went to probe his mind in the hut, and Kylo Ren woke up and pulled the hut down around them. Luke tried to stop him. Nothing about the green lightsaber is mentioned, no thoughts of murder on his mind. And then Rey learns that aspect from Kylo Ren itself through the mind link that they share in the movie, and she learns the truth. So in this instance, Kylo Ren is becoming the supernatural guide for Rey. So he becomes the mentor figure in a sense, and pushes her further along her own heroine's journey, or hero's journey, whatever you want to call it, in this story. Once Rey learns the truth of all that, she makes her way to the cave. She has a revelation in the cave, and she contacts Kylo Ren again through their Force link. Luke barges in, blasts down the hut around her, and tells her to get the hell off the island. He doesn't want anything to do with her because he saw Kylo and the Force touching Rey. Rey pulls out her bow staff-like weapon, proceeds to fight Luke, and then Luke disarms her. She pulls out the blue lightsaber and knocks Luke to the ground. And then Luke recounts the actual details of that night in the hut with Kylo Ren, which I've already told you about. After they fight, when Rey knocks down Luke, she offers him the lightsaber one more time. That's Luke's second call to action, which he again rejects. Rey then believes Kylo is their only hope, that she can turn him back to the good side, because he's still conflicted. He still hasn't made his choice whether to be light or dark. And she leaves, just like Luke left in The Empire Strikes Back. When Rey leaves, this is a sort of death in the hero's journey. What she believed of Luke, what she thought of the legend that is Luke Skywalker, is dead. That legend had to die with him when she met him on Ahch-To. So that's her death crossing, her death section in the hero's journey. Then we see Luke Skywalker go to the Force Tree, which is the Jedi Temple on Ahch-To, and he's ready to burn this shit down to the ground. And then we see Mr. Magical Yoda. appear. My God, I love seeing that little green puppet. Yoda totally agrees with Luke's decision to end the Jedi, burn the text down. Unbeknownst to him, the text's already gone from the first Jedi temple. They're already on the ship, but Yoda, being all powerful and being one with the Force, already knows all this. Luke has a moment of hesitation, wonders if he could really burn the tree down. Yoda just ends up doing the job for him. He summons lightning from the sky, much like the Bendu did in Rebels, and just burns that tree to the motherfucking ground. It's fantastic. The coolest part here is the Force gets expanded a little bit. He raps Luke on the head with his cane. Yoda's dead. He can physically touch Luke, though, as a Force ghost, which shows how powerful the Force is in this movie. Just a small tidbit. And then he imparts words of wisdom on Luke that everything that Rey needs, she already has. The way that Jedi have been trained before, the way you've been trained, needs to die. Things need to change. So it's just a metaphor for Star Wars changing. Star Wars needs to change entirely to become relevant and to move on with this new generation. Yoda mentions his final words to Luke to pass on what you learned. That does not just mean mastery or skill in the Force. It also means doubt, fear, and especially to pass on failure. Failure is the greatest teacher. It is the same in real life as it is in Star Wars. And Yoda, as the ambassador of Star Wars, the ultimate Jedi Master, passes that information on to Luke, that you must pass on the failure that you have learned. And in a way, he kind of does that to Rey by his own example, by him not being the Jedi Master she thought he was. So the scene with Yoda and Luke is a message to fans and to everyone around that let old things die. Kylo Ren has been saying it throughout the whole friggin' movie. Let the past die. Yoda is echoing that sentiment in that moment, and it's fantastic. It lines up with the rest of the movie. Thematically, it lines up with where Star Wars is right now as a franchise and where it needs to go. The past needs to die. Doesn't mean we forget it. It just, things need to change. Things need to move forward. We need new characters, new ways to view the world. We can't focus on the Jedi and the Sith. We can't focus on the Skywalkers anymore. We need to change Star Wars up and change it for the better. And then we see Luke's rebirth. In a sense, he chooses to go and help the Resistance. So we see Luke show up on the planet Crate in the final battle scene. He talks with Leia. They have a very, very touching moment. I teared up when he kisses her forehead. Oh man, that was so sad, especially since Carrie Fisher is no longer with us and she's passed on. Then this being her final movie and all is really touching in that moment. I'm getting weepy just thinking about it. Then we also see Rey confronting Kylo and Snoke on the supremacy at the same time. We see a whole battle ensue. Kylo Ren reveals Rey the details of her parents, and those details are that Rey's parents were no one. They were junkers on Jakku. They traded her in for drinking money, and they left her there, and they went off and they died somewhere, and they're buried in an unmarked grave. That is Rey's parents. The cave that she goes to in Ahch-To, the dark side cave there, shows her a vision of herself over and over and over again when she asks, "Who are my parents? Where are they?" We see two shadowy figures merge into one, and then we see Rey's face revealed on a mirror wall, which just shows that it doesn't matter who her parents are. Everything she needs from her parents is already inside of her. She doesn't need to be a Skywalker. She doesn't need to be Kenobi. She doesn't need to be part of a powerful bloodline to be someone special. The moral there is greatness out of nothing. Just like real life, people from poverty, from the worst countries, from war-torn countries, can rise up and make their own situation better if they have the guts, the gumption, the luck, and the belief in themselves to do better. And that moment when Rey has her lineage revealed to her by Kylo Ren, even though she's already kind of known it, that's her death in the hero's journey. And her rebirth comes when Kylo soon asks her to join him. There's a real emotional moment. Kylo Ren is genuinely asking Rey to join him. He even says please, but the way he says it's quite emotional and impactful. There's some depth there. And Rey rejects that plea and makes her own choice to follow the light. And a force battle ensues over the Skywalker lightsaber. It's ripped in half. So Rey has no lightsaber at a certain midpoint in the movie, or the last, I guess, before the last quarter of the movie starts. That would be her rebirth. Rey is reborn into the light side, while Kylo Ren, in the same time throughout the movie, is getting more dark. And in that scene in Snoke's throne room, which I'll cover a little later, he is reborn into the dark side. That's his own death and rebirth of his hero's journey. After that, we see Rey going on to Crate to try to make atonement for her past mistakes. She tries to help the Resistance get out of Crate while they're trying to hide from the First Order. We see Luke go on to Crate. A huge confrontation ensues with the First Order. Kylo Ren comes down to battle him. We see Luke actually project himself onto Crate. He looks 20 years younger. He has a brown beard, hair still short, and we see him take on Kylo Ren, take on a bunch of guerrilla walkers as well, and not get hit once. This lightsaber battle ensues, though Luke never once throws a single strike at Kylo Ren. He dodges, he weaves, he distracts. Just like Yoda said, the Jedi use the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. And we see that dichotomy with Kylo Ren and Luke Skywalker. In that moment, Kylo is in pure attack mode. He is out to kill Luke Skywalker. He hates him. He hates what he's done to him. When he was Ben Solo, how he created him, in a sense, or pushed him into being Kylo Ren, how he failed him. And Luke is dodging and weaving, not hitting Kylo at all. And he says, I have failed you, just the way Obi-Wan had failed Anakin in the prequels. And he acknowledges that. In that sense, that's his rebirth into light and him making atonement for his past sins. He explains to Kylo that if he strikes him down, he'll always be with him, like the way Han Solo will always be with him. The conflict will always be in his heart. We see Kylo Ren slice through Luke and try to stab him in the chest. He realizes that Luke's not really there. It's a projection. Luke is projecting his physical embodiment from Ahch-To, just the way Yoda projected himself in the Force on Ahch-To to Luke. He could physically touch Leia. He put a kiss on her forehead. Everybody could see him physically there, but he wasn't actually there, which is, it just blows the power of the Force into a whole new realm. No parlor tricks. This is like the heavy stuff, the big hitters, the masters. Once Kylo realizes that, he realizes Luke's been a distraction, he screams out no, but the other reason he realizes, or he screams out no, is that he knows the toll and the cost that projecting himself that far has. He hints at it in the beginning of the movie. When the mind link between him and Rey is first established, he says, the effort, you can't be doing this, the effort is too much, it'll kill you. That's exactly what happens to Luke next. He dies from the effort of projecting himself across the galaxy to help the Resistance escape. Great. That was also unexpected. I did not expect Luke Skywalker to die in this movie. It's sad, but it is structurally, narratively, and just thematically the way it had to go. There is no other way it could have gone. And that's great. You know what? I loved it. It was a genuine surprise. Luke can still come back as a Force Ghost, which is cool, especially the way Yoda came back in this one. It's not going to stop him. Death is just the beginning. So in the way when Luke dies, that's his return, as the Joseph Campbell model shows. That's this gift of the god or the goddess. He becomes one with the Force. He becomes the Force, the ultimate power in the universe, the balance that everyone feels within themselves and around them. And in this way, he becomes more powerful than ever. And Rey is left as the last Jedi, the only Jedi currently that we know of. So throughout the whole movie, we have different heroes' journeys going on. We have Kylo's villain's journey, we have Finn's hero's journey, we have Poe's hero's journey, which is him learning to become a leader, not a hotshot pilot. The whole movie still uses the hero's journey, but it upends expectations and the way things end for most of the characters. And that's fantastic. This movie and the Star Wars franchise needed that entirely just to keep it fresh and keep it exciting. So the hero's journey is still relevant to Star Wars. It just, there's a new take, there's a new spin, and things aren't always black and white in the hero's journey now, and that's fantastic. Star Wars needed that. It needs to be kept fresh. I want to see another 20, 30, 50, 100 years of Star Wars. I want to hopefully live that long to see all of it. But yeah, the new generation needs that. The new, not even millennials, even the kids coming up past the millennial generation, they're getting smart. They'll see all the problems going on in the world, and they will relate to it in shades of gray, not just black and white. So those are the two major reasons I really love The Last Jedi. There's a whole ton others that I'll cover right now. First of all, yes, I will acknowledge there are plot holes in the movie. That's one of the major gripes of the fan base, is all the plot holes. But guys, since the EU, plot holes have always been explained in other media. That's just the way it's always been. Star Wars is a cash cow. It's a business first and foremost. Disney and Lucasfilm are not stupid. They're here to make money. And those plot holes will be revealed in books, comic books, video games, visual dictionaries, guides. That's just the way it's going to be. Stop bitching about it. You know this. You know this as a fan. Just move on. Plot holes will be explained in due time. And don't act like you're not going to buy any more Star Wars stuff because you didn't like the movie. Yeah, maybe 4% of you will follow through with that. The rest of you, Star Wars is like crack. You need it. I need it. We're still going to buy that shit. So don't act self-righteous about it, please. So the things I loved about the movie, in no particular order. The beginning scene, I love the humor. I love Poe Dameron and Hux dynamic. Hux jumps out of hyperspace to the Resistance base with his fleet of Star Destroyers. Poe comes out in a single X-Wing, and he started to distract Hux and the Dreadnought that just appeared. While he charges up his booster rocket, he calls to Hux and says General Organa has an urgent communique for him. Then Hux like, okay, what is it? He's like, no, I'm holding for Hux. This is Hux, he replies. It's like, yep, still holding. Okay. There's a really long, awkward pause. It's just hilarious. Hux goes, I was like, can you hear me? He's like, Poe gets back on the comms like, I'm holding for Hux. Still holding. Tall, pasty white guy. It's so funny. Hilarious. The other next major thing I really liked was, I think I already covered this, but Yoda appearing. I love the enhanced force powers of Yoda. That he can physically manifest himself and touch the real world as a Force Ghost is amazing. He raps Luke on the head, he puts some knowledge on his ass. He manipulates the weather just like the Bendu did in Star Wars Rebels. That's a real cool callback to Rebels and a nice tie-in. Yoda is the Force. He's pure Force right now. He's the most powerful being you can get outside of Snoke and Luke. I really like that. I would have loved to see more Force Ghosts. There was a concept art in the Force Awakens, the art of the Force Awakens, of Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader appearing as Force Ghosts to Luke and Ben. I would have loved to see that. Hayden Christensen, the Star Wars Story Group, please make that happen. It'd be fantastic. I like Yoda as a character because he's more in line with his Empire Strikes Back version of the character, which is more wizened old master, a little bit clowning around, sarcastic. He's not the militarized version that we saw in Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Clone Wars, and Revenge of the Sith. That Yoda is good, but I like the old wisecracking Yoda. That one's cool. That's my favorite. The next thing that I really enjoyed was the emotional moment with Luke and Leia. That just brought me to tears, man. Like, Carrie's gone. I don't know where the next movie is going to be headed, but seeing them on screen for a final time and sharing that kind of tender moment together, the siblings can only share, was really great to see. I think I'm probably going to tear up every time I watch it. I don't think I'm going to get over it. Most fans won't get over it. It was beautiful. Something else I liked was the character of Vice Admiral Holdo. She was a friend of Leia's. in the Leia Princess of Alderaan books. In that book, she was very, how do I say this, fascinated with death. She was quirky, she spoke in riddles, she's very flaky. In this movie, she's take charge, she's very determined, set. She no longer speaks in riddles and metaphors. She still has her crazy colored hair that she did when she was younger. And I like that. Most people say they don't like it because it's not consistent with her character in the books. And you know what? People grow. In that book, she's, 15, 16? Here, she's probably 30, 40, 50, almost. People need to grow and they need to change. They mature. And she is much more solid character in this movie. We see the brashness of Holdo's youth gone. And that's kind of a lesson she tries to instill in Poe Dameron throughout this entire movie. Poe mentions that she was made at the Battle of Chiron Bell. We don't know what that is quite yet in the new canon. It hasn't been explained. This is kind of the first mention of it. But I'd like to think that's the moment where she really set aside childish things and became the Holdo that we see in this movie. Another part I really liked, but most fans didn't, was Leia using her force powers to save herself after her ship, the Raddus, which is named actually after Captain Raddus from Rogue One, the Mon Calamari, the blue skin Mon Cal. She saves herself. The bridge gets destroyed. The Raddus's bridge gets destroyed by one of the TIE pilots with Kylo Ren. She gets thrown into the vacuum of space, and she manages to force pull herself back into the ship and survive. And people are saying that's unrealistic of Leia, that she's never really used the Force before. Yeah, of course not. It's never shown in the original trilogy. It's briefly mentioned in some of the new canon. It's not really shown to see how she explored the Force. There's still that area is kind of a no-touch zone right now for authors and filmmakers, so I think the story group's trying to still figure that out. But at the end of the day, she's still a Skywalker. The Skywalker bloodline is powerful. It's mentioned throughout the movie. She acts on instinct, I think, here a little bit. She has a little bit Force training. It's mentioned in some of the canon novels, Luke, that she was his first apprentice to a point. So she has rudimentary control, and in that extreme situation, she manages to pull herself to safety. I liked it. People thought it was too much like Harry Potter or some shit. Man, I don't know. I enjoyed it. Speaking of that moment, another of my favorite moments was Kylo's moment of mercy right before the explosion happened on the bridge that sucked Leia out into the vacuum. The conflict in Kylo is still very, very real. He's even more conflicted after he's killed Han Solo. Snoke states that in his throne room as well. And props to Adam Driver, man. Holy shit, you are an amazing actor. I absolutely love the evolution of Kylo Ren from The Force Awakens to now. Conflict is real, the anger is real, the way you play the character is amazing, so thank you for that performance. Props off to you. Hats off to you, I should say, not props, but props to you anyway, sir. Fantastic job. What's even better about the conflict is it gives you a sense of hope that Kylo Ren can actually be redeemed, and Rey is leaning on that hope throughout the majority of the second act of the movie. One of the coolest parts, which I mentioned earlier, is that we find out Luke Skywalker is the reason Kylo Ren exists. Luke as a master failed Ben Solo. He sensed the dark side building within his apprentice while he was training him at his Jedi Academy. So he ends up going to his hut while he's sleeping one day, and he probes into his feelings and into the future, and he sees Ben Solo become Kylo Ren. And just like Yoda says, the always in motion the future is. Luke saw one potential future. What we learn is that Kylo has not made his choice at that point. Snoke has heavily influenced him. It's been mentioned in the canon books. We don't really know yet who Snoke is exactly, and how Leia and Luke and all them know about Snoke and Snoke's influence on Ben Solo. But in that moment, when Luke is seeing the future, he has flashbacks to Darth Vader, to the fall of the Jedi in the prequels, and he thinks he can stop it. He can stop a new empire from being formed. He pulls out his green lightsaber and he's getting ready to strike Kylo down. And the reason he wants to do that is he sees Kylo murdering everyone he loves and ruining all that he's worked for up to this point, and all that he's sacrificed for. He gives into his own dark side at this point, the dark that's within Luke. And it's in this moment he has a moment of regret. He's standing there with his lightsaber ignited, and Ben Solo wakes up and he sees his master hovering over him, going in for the kill. And Luke wasn't going to kill him in that moment, but there was... how else would you react when you see something like that happen? Ben calls his blue lightsaber to him, which has the same hilt as his... or the bottom piece, I guess. It has the same bottom piece as his current lightsaber. And he blocks Luke and pulls the hut down around them. And Luke says something in that scene that he sees not a murderer, a man. He sees a scared little boy, and he is the reason Kylo Ren went to the dark side. That started his full-on transformation into Kylo Ren. So Luke fails in that moment. He forgets the future is always in motion. And Yoda mentions that to him on Ahch-To, that failure is the greatest teacher. The other thing is that it's a common trope in a lot of fiction, is that we cause the future to be the way it is. So by igniting his lightsaber and by making the choice to kill Ben Solo, Luke brought about the actions he feared. He brought about the creation of Kylo Ren and essentially ensured the First Order's rise to power. And that's deep, especially for someone who helped stop the Empire. He basically undid all the work that... well, not all the work, I should say some of the work. He helped the First Order gain the mystical part of its command structure in that moment. So with Luke failing to guide Kylo, or Ben in that moment, Ben rips down the hut, he destroys Luke's Jedi temple, and he escapes with a group of other Jedi deserters. So those could be the Knights of Ren. They could be something else, but as far as we know, there are some other dark side Jedi in this universe. What happened to them after that point, we don't know. We'll find out sometime in the future. It was also cool to see Ben Solo wielding a blue lightsaber. The hilt construction is kind of weird, but hey, that's cool, man. More toys. I hope they come out with a toy with that so I can get a closer look at it. Another cool part that I really loved was the way Snoke bridged Rey and Kylo's mind. That's amazing. That whole aspect of seeing the two of them communicate through long distances in the Force and seeing each other so clearly was one of my favorite aspects. The dynamic and interplay between Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley was spot on. Acting was beautiful. And that connection, that bridge, again shows the greater power of the Force. Kylo in that moment tells Rey, hey, you can't be projecting yourself this far. The effort would kill you, which foreshadows Luke's death later in the movie. It gives the Force a sense of grandeur again that's been missing for a long while since the original trilogy. I feel there's some real sense of mysticism with that, and with the ability to project oneself. So the ability to project oneself over long distances is also a new Force power. You can physically manifest your body, so something Yoda's doing, but because he's already dead, that's the next level of that ability. What Luke does is he projects his body to create, and he looks about 20 years younger, and not 20, I say 10, 15 years younger. He physically touches Leia, gives her a kiss on the head, gives her Han Solo's dice. He confronts the guerrilla walkers and Kylo Ren. He gets blasted, walks out of the blast lake. You can't touch this, brushes the shoulder off. Kylo comes down to fight him. He's dodging, he's weaving, he's never attacking Kylo Ren, and then Kylo slices through him and realizes he's not here. He's just a projection. That's cool. The Force right now is just mind-blowingly powerful, and I'm loving the new dynamic in the movie. The Force needs to be mystical. It needs to be unexpected. It's a great change to the canon, and I hope they keep pushing the boundaries of that. Side note, the telepathic bond between Rey and Kylo, I thought it was like twin telepathy, similar to Luke's and Leia's twin telepathy, or Gina and Jason Solo in the EU, but I'm glad it's not. It's way better that it's not. And the fact that they can physically see one another is great. That's why Adam Driver had to appear shirtless in that one scene, is to show that Rey can physically see his surroundings, especially when she asks him to put a cowl on, and he's just like, no, fuck that. Let's talk about Snoke. Snoke went out like a bitch. Snoke dies in this movie. Yeah, straight up. He goes out like a bitch, but in a good way, in the sense that it serves the narrative. Yeah, we don't get to find out Snoke's background. We barely actually get to find anything out about Snoke. The only things we know is he's crippled, his body's broken, he loves opulence, his throne room is ornate. Well, not ornate, but in a sense it's ornate. He's wearing gold robes, slippers for comfort, his body is twisted and broken, but he's extremely, extremely powerful with the Force. He picks up Rey like a rag doll, tosses her around the room. Rey tries to pull her lightsaber back. He takes that out of midair, smashes her in the head with it. She pulls Kylo's lightsaber out. He picks her up, tosses her around the room, tortures her a bit, uses Force Freeze, probes her mind, finds out Luke Skywalker wants to die and end the Jedi on top of that. Snoke's power in the Force is insane. Physically, he's a shell. He's nothing. Which is strange because Darth Vader was a shell. He lost limbs. And he was still powerful, but not as powerful as he was when he was Anakin Skywalker. I'm sure that'll be explained later in some other media. So Snoke basically goes out like a bitch. But that's due to his own arrogance, his own hubris. The entire movie, Snoke is manipulating Kylo Ren's emotions. When he's in the throne room for the first time, he calls Kylo Ren conflicted after the death of Han Solo, which he is. He can sense every one of his emotions. Kylo says, I gave everything to you. He gets angry, he starts to make a move at Snoke. And Snoke hurls Force Lightning into the ground, it bounces off, and it shocks Kylo Ren. I fucking love that. That was a cool scene. He's very, very powerful. We see the power again with Rey in the throne room. And the great thing about Snoke is, like Rian Johnson said, we need to know as much as we need just for the plot purpose of the movie. We know nothing about him. The way he goes out is pretty cool. He's sitting there torturing Rey, and he chooses to make Kylo Ren kill her. In that instant, he senses no more conflict, no more indecisiveness in Kylo Ren. In that same instant, he's pulled Rey's lightsaber and he's got it next to him on the throne, the same way Palpatine had the lightsaber on his throne in Return of the Jedi. And then he tells Ben that he can feel his next move. He's going to pick his lightsaber up, turn it, ignite it, and strike down his true enemy. In the meantime, Ben is using the finger, these two fingers, to manipulate the lightsaber as he's turning and twisting his own crossguard lightsaber towards Rey, getting ready to ignite it. He's turning the other lightsaber with the Force. Actually, I have a lightsaber here. So he's turning the Skywalker lightsaber towards Snoke's body slowly as he's turning his own crossguard lightsaber. And then, bam! Right through the body. Like, he cuts him in half. He goes out like a motherfucker. I'm telling you, that was probably one of the most shocking scenes ever. I did not expect Snoke to go out. There's been so much build-up over Snoke for the last 2 years, and I think that's part of the reason the fan base is going nuts, is they have all these theories. Snoke is Plagueis, Snoke is Windu, Snoke is fucking, who knows, Jar Jar Binks, whatever. And everything we thought about Snoke, all the speculation, is down the shitter. It's gone. It's down the drain. And you know what? That's cool. I'm cool with that. And it was shocking at first, but I don't believe this new series needs such a black and white figure as Snoke. He's basically a copy of the Emperor. We already had an Emperor. We don't need that. Kylo Ren, Adam Driver's Kylo Ren, is a much, much more interesting character. He's more human. He's conflicted. He's much more grounded to the way people are in real life. In that instance, Kylo Ren uses Snoke's hubris and Snoke's arrogance in his own power to manipulate him and kill him and seize the throne of Supreme Leader of the First Order, which is really cool. I absolutely love that scene. Sorry if I'm sound kind of weird. I'm getting winded. I've never talked for this long before on a video. Another thing is, let's call them the original fanboys. The original trilogy people are griping about that scene, is that Snoke being all powerful like the Emperor was would never happen. That would never happen in a million years. Man, the thing we have to realize is Luke was in a very similar position in Return of the Jedi. The main difference is here, Kylo had the advantage of Rey. If Luke had a distraction for the Emperor's hubris at the time of Return of the Jedi, he could have easily done the same thing. Turned his lightsaber, cut through the Emperor, and given into his darker emotions at the same time. So in this instance, Snoke was feeling Kylo's emotions. He had Rey as a distraction there, so Snoke was entirely focused on Kylo striking Rey down, that he failed to see his own error, and he paid for it. A lot of people are saying Snoke's not dead. They believe he's a projection, just like Luke was. Could be. He has that massive kyber. Not kyber, I guess, sort of. It's like obsidian from the cave on Mustafar underneath Darth Vader's castle. That's in the visual dictionary for The Force Awakens, I believe. Well, we'll see if anything comes out of that in other media, but for now, Snoke's dead. I'm cool with it. Let's move on. The scene following that, the fight with the Praetorian Guards, holy fuck, that was cool. I like the Praetorian Guards, unlike the Royal Guards who get their ass handed to them by Yoda in The Revenge of the Sith. The Praetorian Guards are badasses. They fight the different weapon styles. Their movements are really cool. Rey and Kylo have a seriously hard time taking them down. I like how they work in unison to take him down there. I especially love the scene where Kylo's getting choked out. He loses his lightsaber, and Rey tosses him the Skywalker lightsaber, and he just flicks it on real quick. Burns a hole through the back of the Praetorian Guard's eyes. Fantastic. I love the physicality of the fights. It was amazingly choreographed, so bravo. The scene right after they defeat the Praetorian Guard is Kylo's revelation to Rey that her parents are nothing. There's a scene in the cave earlier where Rey asks the dark side cave who her parents are. It shows her own reflection repeated 100 times till she comes to a mirror-like wall. She sees two shadows joining into one, and then she sees her own face reflected back at her. That shows that it doesn't matter who her parents are. That all she needs is inside herself, and Kylo tells her the same thing. That she's no one special. Her parents were nobody special. They were junkers who sold her for drinking money, and then died in an unmarked grave on Jakku. And that's the only prediction I personally had right from Star Wars. I still could be a fake out still. Kylo is a dark side user. He manipulates, he lies. So we'll see what happens in episode 9. See if Disney and the story group and JJ retcon the thing, but I don't think they will. Yeah, I love that scene. Rey is emotional. She's coming to terms with it, that her parents were nobody. They're never coming back for her. And Kylo in his arrogance tells her she's nobody. Kylo is someone. He is Skywalker blood. He believes he has the right to rule over everyone based on his lineage. And we don't. It's good that Rey is nobody. We don't need another Skywalker. We have one. We don't need anything else. She can be who she wants to be. And in that moment, Kylo says to her, "You're someone to me," and there's genuine emotion behind that. These two have a connection. It may not be romantic, but they have a respect for one another, at least in their Force powers. They may not get it along. They have conflicting views on the Force, but after their fight on in the Force Awakens, they do have a grudgeful respect of one another. Especially once their minds have been linked, they know more about each other and their connection gets deeper. Kylo asks her to take over the First Order with her when she asks him to stop the Snoke ship from bombarding the Rebel fleet. He genuinely reaches out his hand out to her and says, "Join me." And the way he says please, there was genuine emotion. He doesn't want to lose anyone else he's been connected to. And in that instance, Rey makes her own choice. She chooses to go fully light, he chooses to go dark. They both pull for the Skywalker lightsaber and rip it apart. So the symbolism in that moment with the lightsaber being ripped apart is just like Kylo says, let old things die. Kill it if you have to. Yeah, we're killing off old characters, we're killing off what came before, and that's okay. Star Wars needs that to move forward, to grow, to become better. So that was a beautiful scene. Okay, let's talk visuals. The next thing I loved about this movie was the amazing visuals. This movie has been shot in ways I have not seen. I haven't seen any of Rian Johnson's other films. I'm going to go back and watch them now. The contrast between heavy, light, dark color palettes. We see Ahch-To with lots of grays, lots of light, to represent the conflicting tones of the light side and the dark. We see Snoke's throne room in the First Order as gray and deep reds to represent the dark side, hate, anger, all those things, and blood and death. The two different color palettes come together as one on the planet Crate. there is the light dusting of sand and salt over top of the blood red salt crystals all over the planet, and that thematically that ties into the whole idea of balance throughout the whole movie. You need the light, you need the dark. As Luke says to Rey at one point in the movie, powerful light, powerful dark, they balance one another. Snoke says something similar. Dark side rises and light to meet it. Now, the crate is a physical embodiment of that principle, and I like it. I love the thematic imagery. I love it all. The Luke Skywalker scenes on Crate were visually amazing. When he gets blasted by the guerrilla walkers and the other AT-ATs, all the red dust coming up off the ground, the twilight, him dusting his shoulder off, and his fight with Kylo Ren, all the close-ups, the samurai feel of the whole fight, just amazing. I love the visuals. I love the little micro expressions you can see on the screen if you're paying close enough attention. It's amazing. Luke's death scene where he dies after that fight, he sees a projection, or he's on Act 2 and he looks off to the horizon, so thematically Luke is in coherence with his original trilogy self. Yoda always tells him that his mind is never in the moment. It is never present. He's always looking off to the horizon. In that moment on his battle on Crate, he was absolutely fully in the moment. He would have not been able to project himself halfway across the galaxy and to distract Kylo Ren while letting other people escape. So I love that part. And then we see Luke die. He is an Octu. Octu only has one son. What we see is a vision of the twin sons of Tatooine setting for the final time, and it's in coherence with Luke's character. He's still looking off to the horizon, but also in that moment he was fully present. He let the Resistance fighters escape by distracting the First Order, and he just fades away. He becomes more powerful in that sense. He becomes one with the Force, and I believe we're going to see him again in Episode 9. And then we have the single most visually stunning shot in the entire movie. It is when the First Order ships are firing on the Resistance transports. Holdo turns the Raddus around and slices into the entire First Order fleet by going straight into them at light speed. The whole theater goes dark. Everything's done in black and white and shades of blue. There's no sound. You see the First Order Star Destroyers getting ripped in half. You see Snoke ship the Supremacy lose a good quarter of itself. It's just stunning. That is my favorite shot by far in any Star Wars movie, in general in cinema, I believe. I can watch that scene over and over again. And from a purely visual standpoint, it is the most gorgeous scene I've ever seen. I'm absolutely in love with it. So thank you, Rian Johnson, for your very unique directing and visual style. That was amazing. So now on to some of the more minor stuff. Finn and Rose's arc was really good. It was not really good, but it was okay. It was pretty decent. It slowed the movie down a little bit, but one of the major gripes is the romance between Finn and Rose is too contrived. It's not true. If you've been in any high-pressure, dangerous situation with someone else and you've survived it, it brings you a lot closer together in an instant. I've seen it happen with people I know. A romance can blossom from the strangest situations. So when Rose goes in for that kiss after saving Finn from certain death, it's not contrived. Things can happen that way. And from things I've experienced and I've seen, I totally believe it. It was a cool moment. I enjoyed it. Kelly Marie Tran is amazing as Rose. I wish the character of Paige was explored a little more, but she needed to die at the beginning of the movie to explore Rose's the fallout for Rose. Paige was her sister, by the way. I also like the Porgs. Porgs were cute as fuck. They were not overdone, not overused. I'm so glad they were in there. I can't wait to see more Porg. And thank you for all those people watching the Porg video. Y'all made my channel blow up a little bit, so I appreciate that. Thank you. I really like Poe's arc, where he goes from hotshot pilot to someone who can strategize and see the bigger picture. I can't wait to see Poe as a setup for Leia as a leader in Episode 9. I believe there might be a time jump, just from what I'm hearing, if that's true. So that would be very interesting to see. I would love to see Grand General Dameron, or whatever he's going to be called, in that leading strategically from a cruiser, but jumping into an X-Wing if he has to. I really loved all the scenes with BB-8. BB-8's a little badass. His comedy, his mischievousness, is so good. Just like JJ said, he's cute as hell, but he gets into some trouble. He teams up with a scoundrel DJ to hack and steal a ship. He shoots all the guards in Canto Bight with coins that a little alien thought he was a slot machine. He's another iconic moment where, like in The Force Awakens, he gives a thumbs up with his little lighter. Here, after shooting the coins, he blows out the smoke. It's fantastic, so cute. And then the part where he rides an AT-AT and starts going at the First Order, epic. Speaking of other characters, I don't like DJ. I thought his arc was kind of stupid. You don't really get to know much about him. I don't understand how he knows coding for the First Order. Benicio del Toro is a fantastic actor. I just feel like the character was underwhelming, underutilized. But a lot of the scenes of him, Rose, and Finn on the Supremacy got cut from the movie. They probably will be in the deleted scenes for The Last Jedi, so hopefully that clears some of that up for me. Finn's character arc wasn't the greatest in this movie. I think he was underused and used for comedy a lot. He was just okay, but I expected a little more from him. Hopefully we see more Finn in the last movie of the trilogy. John Boyega is a great actor. All props to him. He's a cool dude. Hopefully I get to meet him one day. Say thank you. If you're watching this at any point, John, thank you. The scene with Maz Kanata, yeah, I feel like that could have been cut. It's stupid, I think. I love Maz as a character, but there's this moment where Finn and Poe are trying to decide what to do with the information about the hyperspace tracker that Rose figures out. I'm like, oh shit, let's call Maz. First of all, how did Poe know about Maz? Secondly, why would you think of Maz as the first person to call? Like, yes, Maz kind of had a small, I guess, starting relationship with Finn at the middle of The Force Awakens, but I didn't feel like it was explained enough or built up enough to justify that scene. I could have done without. Probably that whole looking for a slicer thing could have been done without. But speaking of which, the hyperspace tracker, that is fantastic. It was teased in Rogue One when Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor are in the vault on Scarif and they're going through the files. It was part of the Tarkin Initiative, so all the new technologies that the Empire and Grand Moff Tarkin were designing for the Empire, just like the Death Star. So it's cool to see that come into fruition of the First Order. They have all the old archives. Yeah, Scarif was destroyed, but there's probably backups somewhere, which is really cool. Another thing I absolutely hated was Phasma. I love Gwendolyn Christie as an actress. Game of Thrones, she's fantastic. Phasma is a seriously underwhelming character in these movies. In the Phasma novel, the comic book, she's a total badass. And they're trying to set her up as Boba Fett for this series, but it's not working. She's barely got any screen time. The fight was okay. It was too short, though, in this movie, the fight between Phasma and Finn. Finn takes her out way too easy. She falls to her death. If she's dead, maybe they'll find a way to bring her back, too. I don't like it. Either do something with the character or get rid of her. Keep her dead. Another thing I really didn't vibe too much with was the symbology of the factions. We see Rose Tico use a symbol, or a ring with a symbol inside of it to convince a stable boy to let them escape. The stable boy is also force sensitive, by the way. That's the ending shot. At the scene, there's a whole narrative going on in the books about children of the Force and people learning, or people having the Force awaken inside them and coming from nothing. But Rose shows them a ring. Inside it is the Rebel Alliance symbol. They're using it as the Resistance symbol. I think you could just do new icons for the First Order and the Resistance. Don't rehash and use the old ones. It's going to get confusing for some people, especially the casual fans. So you could have done better with that. The one thing I really, really absolutely hate about this movie is nothing to do with the movie itself. It's to do with the division among the fans and the response to the movie. I do not like the bashing of true fans against people who like the movie, or if their opinion is different than the fact that they hate the movie sucked. Man, I don't like it. I don't like how they attack the director, the cast, the crew, Disney and Lucasfilm. At the end of the day, yeah, opinions are going to be different. There's no need to attack other people, but I will cover that in another video. So stay tuned for that one. I have some things to say that are completely my own opinion. If you don't like it, I don't care. I don't like yours. We're cool. Let's move on. But overall, I absolutely love this movie. It is by far my favorite Star Wars movie. I'm excited for 9. I can't wait for the other content and the other media content like books, comics, games, you name it. I got it. I love it. This movie is a solid 9.5, 10 for me. So please go out and see it multiple times if you can. I plan to see it at least like 3 or 4 more times in theaters at least. Really fully take it in. If you don't like the movie, just watch it one more time after. Try to really absorb the things you do. Absorb the things that you hate. And try to give logic as to why. At the end of the day, our opinions are going to be different. You may like it, I may like it, you may hate it, and I may like it. Who knows? This is why we do this. This is why we do these channels. This is why we're part of the fandom. We're here to discuss, to evaluate, to critique, and to explore a galaxy far, far away and learn things about that galaxy and ourselves. So I appreciate you guys sticking around and watching. This is probably the longest video I've ever done. I'm kind of tired. My voice hurts. And I have to go to work in 3 hours. It's like 4 a.m. But I can't sleep anyway, so that's why I did this. So tell me what you guys thought of the movie. If you've seen it, leave the comments down below. Please hit the like button. It helps the channel a great deal. Subscribe. I would really appreciate that. Turn notifications on if you can. I'm going to be doing contests soon. So as the channel's starting to grow, I will get some stuff out. So to win, you will have to actually like and subscribe to videos. And I'll be picking contest winners as soon as I get kind of my first stuff to give out. A big thank you and shout out to my now 14 subscribers on the channel. It's not a lot. This channel's still fairly new. I've been at it for a month and a half, a little bit over a month and a half. But that's way more people than I thought I'd get at this point. There's been more views than I ever thought I'd get at this point. It's been a giant learning curve, but I love it. I love Star Wars. I love nerd stuff. I love comics. So please stick around. Share this journey with me. Let's learn from each other. Let's grow. And thank you so much for subscribing and watching my content. Check out my other videos. I'll link some of them to you here, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.